Hello everyone, my name is PixelBro, and today I'll be making a little guide on how to use the database tools I've developed to assist with content creation for Aetheria. Please excuse me if I'm a little tongue-tied, this is my first time sharing something like this. So to access the tools, you have to have the project checked out from the repository and opening Unity. If everything compiles, you can access the tools by clicking the window menu, and then selecting Aetheria database tools. Two panels will appear, the list view and the inspector. You can dock these and move them around just like you would in Unity editor windows. At the top of the list view, you have the server field, where you can enter the URL of the database server. Then when you click connect, it will synchronize the local database cache with the tables on the server. We won't be doing that right now, because I want to show you what's up without affecting the data stored there. In the list view, there's all the entries in the database categorized by type. Unfolding a type will show you all the entries of that type and lets you create a new entry. Selecting an entry focuses it in the inspector. This is inspired by the Unity inspector, but it's not really the same thing. It's a fully custom editor window with its own set of features. Before we get to creating items, we need to create a global data object and a galaxy map layer. Normally you wouldn't have to do this because they'd already be in the database, but we're starting from scratch here for demo purposes. Normally you wouldn't have more than one global data in the database, and in fact, creating more than one has no effect, as only the first will ever get used. The values here control various aspects of game balance that don't change during normal gameplay. You can also inspect, modify, and create new map layers for the galaxy. These are used to control values that change depending on what part of the galaxy you're in, such as the density, radius, and mass of the sectors, and the presence of resources within them. Let's call this one hydrogen. And let's create some resources. Let's call them hydrogen, iron, and hydrocarbons. Simple commodities are the basic Tier 0 resources in Aetheria. They are fully interchangeable, and instances of them are stacked in the inventory. The presence of simple commodities is controlled by one or more map layers. If there's more than one, they get multiplied together. You can add those by simply dragging them from the list. You can choose what types of bodies the resource shows up on, as well as the density of that resource and how much it needs to be present in order to even show up. Here in Desmos, I have a graph of the formula used for resource placement. Resources follow a distribution which is asymptotic at the high end, meaning there's always a small chance of any resource appearing in any arbitrarily large quantity. The variables here are P, or bias power, which corresponds to the density value in the map layer associated with the resource. For every planet, a random number between 0 and 1 is generated, and used to sample this curve to determine whether a resource is present. For a rare resource like gold with low density, there might be, say, a 0.1% chance of getting a huge gold deposit, even on a planet in a sector where the map says 0. But in a galaxy with thousands of planets, you're going to get outliers like that. Keeps things interesting. Now let's look at compound commodities. Let's call them refined steel, polymer, and charge capacitor. These are items which need to be crafted from other items. This means each instance is unique, having its own slightly randomized production quality. Every crafted item stores the blueprint used to make it, as well as the items that went into its production, so they can be deconstructed in order to get those items back, or reverse engineered to acquire the technology used to produce them. Let's create a hull and call it a fighter. This is a crafted item, so it shares some data with compound commodities, but it's also an equipable item, so it has some extra stuff. What's exclusive to the hull is the list of hardpoints. These are slots into which the corresponding type of gear can be equipped. This is the first time we see a performance stat, such as capacity over here. That's a stat which can vary between its minimum and maximum value. That's minimum and maximum performance. Max can be a lower number if lower is better. And it can vary according to the current temperature of the hull, the remaining durability of the item, and the crafting quality of the item, or some of its ingredients. More about that in a bit. You can control the exponent of the quality dependency directly on the stat, allowing some stats to be more robust to quality differences, or not be affected by quality at all if the exponent is 0. Heat and durability dependence is a boolean. But there's still an exponent for those values. Instead, that exponent is itself a performance stat. This means that you can create items whose sensitivity to heat or durability depends on the quality of the item, meaning a higher quality item might be more robust to heat or durability conditions. Heat and durability are ignored for these stats to avoid recursion. Heat-dependent stats are controlled by the heat performance curve, which lets you determine where inside the item's operating range the item performs best. Damage that makes it past a ship's shields will take a chunk out of the hull's durability, or that of the equipment if the damage is piercing. The durability of an item also corresponds to the number of seconds it can survive while outside of its operating range. There's a minimum and maximum temperature, which you can set in the unit of your choice. Like, let's say the minimum is 5 Kelvin, and the maximum is 10 Celsius. This means that even when a ship's shields are so powerful that no damage is getting past, it can still be defeated by the heat created by the shield's inefficiency. Now let's create some equipment. Let's call it a quantum dynamo. Let's make it equipable on a reactor hardpoint. In order to make it actually behave like a reactor, we have to give it the reactor behavior. You can see all the performance stats that define how good this reactor is. Now when it is equipped, this item will raise the charge level of the hull up to the behavior's capacitance stat, while generating some heat inversely proportional to its efficiency stat. If the charge goes below 0, the overload efficiency is used to make up the difference, meaning most reactors will become grossly inefficient if you demand more than they can provide, potentially overheating your hull catastrophically. Now let's make a blueprint for one of those compound commodities. We can assign the steel to the blueprint's item field by dragging it, and assign ingredients to the blueprint by dragging those. Let's create a blueprint for that reactor. Oh, first let's rename this one. And let's create a blueprint for the reactor. Let's assign the reactor and give it some and assume that the quantum dynamo requires refined steel, polymer, capacitor, and some extra hydrocarbons. 5 hydrocarbons, 2 capacitors, 3 steel, 2 polymers, something like that. Since this blueprint is for an equipable item, some extra data has appeared. Here we can associate specific ingredients with the stats of the reactor's behaviors. This lets us create items where certain stats depend on specific ingredients, like this reactor where the capacitance stat depends on the quality of the capacitors used in the production. That's all for today. As the game systems evolve, more types of database entries will be added to these tools, but what I've shown you now should be enough for you to understand the basic concepts of the game design and item creation process. Thanks for sticking with me until the end. I know this whole system can be a bit overwhelming, but it's on the surface of creating fun and interesting experiences in the game. I hope you'll use these tools to craft some sweet content for Aetheria. Be sure to join the Game Cult server if you haven't already, link in the description. We always welcome any discussion related to game development. Feel free to contact us if you have any questions. Always remember to find joy. This has been Pixel Bro. Have a good one.